The silver research vessel of the Galactic Scientific Fleet hung motionless in space, its sensors focused on the blue-green planet below. Inside the ship's main observation deck, Chief Researcher Dazzle stared at the screens with all four of his eyes widened in disbelief. "Play that transmission again," he ordered, his scaled fingers tapping nervously on the control panel. The screen flickered to life, showing a human jumping off a tall cliff with nothing but a rope tied to their legs. Dazzle's assistant, Rill, made a choking sound. "And they do this for entertainment?" Rill asked, his antenna twitching in distress. "According to their data networks, they call it bungee jumping," Dazzle confirmed. "And that's not even the most concerning behavior we've documented." The research team had spent the last 3 months secretly monitoring Earth's broadcasts and internet traffic. What they found had thrown the entire galactic scientific community into chaos. Humans, it seemed, deliberately sought out dangerous situations for something they called fun or thrills. Their confusion only deepened when they detected an approaching spacecraft leaving Earth's atmosphere. It was primitive by galactic standards, but its pilot was attempting maneuvers that their best computers classified as suicidal. "Should we establish contact?" Rill asked nervously. Before Dazzle could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. The human pilot had spotted them. "Unknown vessel, this is test pilot Tom Cooper of Earth Space Agency. I notice you folks have been hanging around our orbit for a while. Thought I'd come up and say hello." The casual greeting, delivered while the human spacecraft performed what should have been impossible aerial acrobatics, perfectly summarized everything that confused them about humans. Dazzle followed first contact protocols, introducing himself and his research vessel. To his surprise, Tom seemed completely unfazed by meeting aliens for the first time. In fact, he seemed excited. "Well, isn't this just the coolest thing ever?" Tom's voice crackled through the comm. "Mind if I dock with you? I've got about 2 hours of oxygen left, and I'd love to meet you in person." Dazzle and his crew exchanged worried looks. Their sensors showed Tom's spacecraft wasn't even properly shielded for deep space travel. By their standards, he was basically flying through space in a tin can. "That would be extremely dangerous," Dazzle replied carefully. "Your ship's safety systems are minimal." Tom's laughter filled the communication channel. "Oh, don't worry about that. I've done riskier things. Did I mention I used to be a freestyle skydiving instructor?" The research team watched in horror as Tom's spacecraft smoothly aligned with their docking port, executing a perfect landing despite using technology that belonged in a museum. As the airlock cycled, Dazzle realized that their first official contact with humanity perfectly demonstrated why their species was simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. Humans didn't just ignore danger. They embraced it with open arms and a smile. The airlock doors opened, and Tom stepped through, grinning widely. "So," he said, looking around with obvious delight, "who wants to hear about the time I went volcano surfing?" Dazzle knew right then that the Galactic Council was going to need a completely new classification system for humans. The observation team watched their monitor screens in horror as Bob, a human extreme sports enthusiast, jumped off the side of a mountain wearing nothing but a special suit with wing-like flaps. "Record this," Senior Observer Cax ordered, his silver scales trembling. "The Council needs to see what these creatures do for entertainment." Their ship, hidden in clouds above Earth's surface, had been monitoring human behavior for the past 3 days. After first contact with test pilot Tom last week, the Galactic Council wanted to know if humans were stable enough to join galactic society. So far, the answer was a resounding probably not. "Sir," Junior Observer Rill called out, "the humans in Australia are doing it again. They're wrestling with those large predators they call crocodiles." Cax glided over to Rill's screen. "Are they being forced to do this?" "No, sir. According to their information networks, it's called a tourist attraction." The observation team had learned many strange things about humans. They seemed to actively seek out danger. They climbed frozen waterfalls, jumped out of perfectly good aircraft, and raced vehicles at speeds that made no logical sense. New data incoming, the ship's AI announced. A human-eating establishment called Dave's Super Spicy Challenge is offering prizes to anyone who can consume their newest creation. The teen watched as humans voluntarily ate food containing chemicals that would be classified as weapons on most civilized worlds. The humans were crying, their faces were red. And yet, they were laughing. "I don't understand," Rill said, scratching his head with one of his tentacles. "Why do they do these things?" "For fun," Cax replied, still struggling with the concept, "and something they call social media likes." Their confusion only grew as they observed more human activities. A group in Spain was running from large horned animals through city streets. Somewhere in New Zealand, humans were rolling down hills inside transparent spheres. In Canada, people were jumping between trees suspended hundreds of feet in the air. "Sir," the ship's medical officer reported, "I've analyzed their biology. Nothing explains this behavior. They're not particularly strong, fast, or durable compared to other species. They're just remarkably willing to risk their lives." Cax was preparing his daily report when the screens lit up with a new alert. A human research facility was testing experimental rocket fuel combinations. "Surely their scientists must be more rational," Rill said hopefully. They watched as the human scientists mixed highly volatile compounds while taking bets on what color the explosion would be. "Add this to the report," Cax sighed. "Even their intellectuals display concerning levels of risk-taking behavior." As Cax finished his report to the council, he watched a human child learning to ride a two-wheeled vehicle. The child fell repeatedly, but kept getting up, laughing each time. "Final assessment," he dictated. "Humans appear to lack basic self-preservation instincts. They actively seek out dangerous situations for recreation. Most concerning of all, they appear to be teaching these behaviors to their young." He paused, then added, "However, their persistence and resilience are remarkable. Perhaps what we see as insanity is something else entirely." The screens flickered with new footage. Humans were now trying to surf on active volcanoes. "Though probably not," Cax concluded wearily. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council wasn't going well. Holograms of destroyed ships and burning planets filled the chamber as Admiral Rex described their latest defeat. "The enemy's weapon systems are unlike anything we've seen," Rex said, his tentacles drooping with exhaustion. "They've destroyed 3 more defense fleets this week alone." Jack stood in the corner, watching the council members argue. After 6 months studying humans, he'd been called back to report on Earth's potential military value. Most council members still thought humans were too unstable to trust with advanced technology. "Their ships are immune to our standard tactics," another admiral complained. "They predict every move we make before we make it. They're too logical, too calculating." Jack's antenna twitched as an idea formed. "Maybe that's exactly why we need the humans," he said, stepping forward. "They're the opposite of logical." The council chamber fell silent. Head counselor Mar turned all 3 of his eye stalks toward Jack. "Explain." "I spent months watching humans," Jack said. "They do things no sane species would consider. They have a saying, 'crazy enough to work.'" He quickly connected his data pad to the main display, showing videos of human activities: base jumping, freestyle rock climbing, experimental aircraft testing, all the things that had horrified him initially. "Look at how they think," he continued. "When faced with a wall, most species either stop or look for a door. Humans, they'll try to run up the wall, blow it up, or somehow convince gravity to take a coffee break. That's exactly why they're dangerous," one council member shouted. "They're unpredictable." "Yes," Jack agreed. "That's what we need. The enemy predicts our moves because we think like them, logically, strategically. But humans?" He played a video of a human racing a cheese wheel down a dangerous hill. "Try predicting that." A message flashed across the chamber screens. Another defense fleet had fallen. The enemy was getting closer to the Council's core worlds. Head Counselor Mar raised his appendages for silence. Observer Jack, are you suggesting we give advanced weapons to a species that thinks jumping into a tornado to take pictures is a reasonable activity? Yes, Jack replied firmly. Because that same species also figured out how to split atoms by asking what if. They reached their moon using computers less powerful than our food replicators. They survive on a death world that should have killed them millennia ago. The chamber erupted in worried whispers. Jack played his final video. Humans performing a seemingly impossible rescue operation during a natural disaster. We think they're insane because they do things we'd never consider, he said. But maybe that's exactly what we need. A species that looks at the impossible and says, watch this. After a long moment, Mar spoke. Contact Earth's leaders. If we're going to trust crazy, we might as well trust the experts. As the council members filed out, Jack smiled. He learned something during his time on Earth. Sometimes, the craziest-looking solution was the only one that made sense. Military Commander Mike stood before the Galactic Council, pointing at a holographic map of enemy positions. His casual stance and slight grin made several council members nervous. So here's the thing, Mike said, munching on an apple. You're all fighting this war like it's a chess game. That's your first mistake. Chess is a highly strategic game of logic, Head Counselor Mar noted. How else should we approach warfare? Mike tossed his apple core into a perfect arc toward a waste bin, more like demolition derby meets paintball, with a splash of hide and seek. He paused at the alien's confused expressions. Right, you don't know those games. Let me show you. He pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show Earth ships, tiny compared to the standard galactic vessels. We've modified these cargo ships, stripped them down, added some special surprises. Cargo ships. Admiral Rex's tentacles curled in disbelief. Against their warships. Trust me, Mike grinned. Now we've recruited our best extreme sports athletes as pilots. These folks do backflips off cliffs for fun, flying through a battle zone. That's just Tuesday for them. Jack, watching from his observer position, noticed the council members' colors changing to pale shades of horror as Mike explained his plan. See these black holes? Mike pointed to dangerous areas the galactic fleet carefully avoided. We're going to use them as slingshots. The enemy's targeting systems can't handle ships moving at those angles and speeds. That's suicide, someone shouted. Nah, just spicy flying, Mike corrected. Our pilots have been practicing in simulators, only lost about half of them the first few runs. The simulated pilots, right? Jack asked hopefully. Sure, let's go with that, Mike replied, winking. Anyway, while the enemy is busy trying to figure out why our ships are doing loop-de-loops through gravitational anomalies, we sneak these bad boys into position. He showed small, innocuous-looking devices. What are those? Mar asked. We call them party poppers. They're basically space confetti cannons filled with specialized nanobots. The enemy shields don't stop them because they look like space debris. Once inside, Mike made an explosive gesture with his hands. Surprise party. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Admiral Rex spoke. This plan violates 17 different standard combat protocols. Exactly, Mike beamed. That's why it'll work. The enemy's whole advantage is predicting standard strategies. Well, there's nothing standard about this. It's pure, weapons-grade crazy. Jack stepped forward. I've seen humans pull off crazier stunts just to get social media views. At least this has a purpose. Head Counselor Mar's eye stalks swayed in thought. The casualty rates could be astronomical. Actually, Mike said, his grin fading to a serious expression, we've run the numbers. Our plan has a higher survival rate than your current strategies. Sometimes the safest path is through the storm, not around it. After a long debate, the council agreed. As they filed out, Jack overheard Mike talking to his comm unit. Hey Bob, remember that thing you did with the rocket-powered skateboard? How'd you like to try that in space? Jack just shook his head. Humanity's solutions still terrified him. But at this point, terror was starting to feel like hope. From the observation deck of the Galactic Command ship, Jack watched Earth's modified cargo ships take formation. Each one had been painted with what humans called hot rod flames, and decorated with names like Hold My Beer and Watch This. Those ships are held together with duct tape and prayers, Admiral Rex muttered, all four arms crossed nervously. Actually, it's flex tape, Bob, one of the human pilots, corrected through the comm. Way better for space. Trust me, I tested it by sealing a hole in a space station while riding a jetpack. Jack had learned not to ask if humans were joking about such things. They usually weren't. The enemy fleet appeared on their long-range sensors, a perfect formation of advanced warships that had never known defeat. Until today, Jack hoped. Remember the plan. Commander Mike's voice crackled over the comms. Team Chaos, start your run towards the black hole. Team Yeet, get those party poppers ready. Team Leroy. He paused. Try not to blow yourselves up this time. No promises, came the cheerful reply. Jack watched as the first wave of human ships accelerated toward the nearby black hole. The enemy fleet, detecting the approach, adjusted their formation to intercept. They're following standard combat algorithms, Rex observed. They expect our ships to break off at the safe distance point. Yeah, about that. Mike chuckled. Hey, Susan, show them that trick you learned in roller derby. One of the cargo ships suddenly spun on its axis, using the black hole's gravitational pull like a slingshot. It shot past the enemy formation at speeds that made the galactic sensors scream in protest. Impossible, Rex gasped. Their crew should be paced. Nah, Susan's voice came through, slightly strained but excited. This is nothing compared to the G-forces in my wingsuit diving days. The enemy ships tried to track the unconventional movements, but their targeting systems were designed for logical, predictable patterns. Human pilots were being neither logical nor predictable. Now, Team Neat, Mike commanded. Smaller ships darted from behind debris fields, launching what looked like glittering clouds toward the enemy vessels. The party poppers worked exactly as planned. The nanobots slipped through the shields and began their work. Did that human ship just do a backflip through a radiation belt? Rex asked weakly. With a barrel roll finish, Bob confirmed proudly. Stick that landing, Jerry. One by one, enemy ships began shutting down as the nanobots infiltrated their systems. Their perfect formation broke apart as they tried to counter attacks coming from impossible angles at suicidal speeds. This is madness, Rex whispered. This is humanity, Jack corrected, watching a cargo ship drift sideways through space, its pilot humming danger zone over the comms. They took everything that should kill them and turned it into an advantage. As the enemy fleet retreated in disarray, Mike's voice came over the channel. That was just the warm-up, folks. Wait till they see what we've got planned for round 2. Jack noticed Rex's tentacles had tied themselves in nervous knots. Somehow, that seemed like the only reasonable response to witnessing human battle tactics. The enemy flagship's commander stared at their tactical display in growing frustration. Nothing made sense anymore. Their perfect battle computer, which had won countless victories, was having what humans called a mental breakdown. They're doing it wrong. The computer's AI complained. Ships can't move like that. They shouldn't even be intact. This defies all combat logic. Another alert flashed. A human cargo ship had just powered down completely, drifting toward their fleet like space debris. Standard protocol said to ignore it. That was a mistake. The ship suddenly powered up, its hull panels dropping away to reveal what looked like giant space fireworks. Before their shields could react, the area was filled with colorful explosions that somehow scrambled their sensor systems. Did they just weaponize a New Year's celebration? The commander asked nobody in particular. Actually, "It's more like 4th of July meets Mardi Gras," came a human voice over their supposedly secure channel. "We call it Operation Razzle Dazzle." In the Galactic command ship, Jack and Admiral Rex watched the battle unfold. The enemy fleet, once known for its perfect formation and unbeatable strategies, was scattered across space like panicked insects. "Their main computer is trying to predict human actions," Jack explained, reading from his tablet. "But it's running into what humans call a does not compute error. How can we predict them when they don't even know what they're doing?" Rex wondered, watching a human ship perform what appeared to be a space version of a breakdance move to avoid enemy fire. Commander Mike's voice crackled over the comm. "Hey folks, watch this. Team Bulldozer, execute maneuver YOLO." 3 cargo ships suddenly linked together with what looked suspiciously like giant magnets. The combined vessels spun rapidly, creating a makeshift drill that tore through the enemy's formation. "That's not possible," the enemy commander shouted. "Funny thing about humans," Jack said, smiling as he watched. "They don't care much about possible. They hear impossible and think challenge accepted." The enemy's battle computer finally crashed completely, unable to process the chaos unfolding before it. Their ships, dependent on its tactical guidance, began moving in confused patterns. Their entire strategy relied on predicting logical responses, Rex realized. "But humans, we threw the logic book out the airlock," one of the human pilots cheerfully interrupted. "Hey, watch me thread this needle between those 2 dreadnoughts." Jack watched as the human ships, now operating in what they called full party mode, continued to dismantle the enemy fleet with tactics that belonged more in a circus than a battlefield. "Status report," Rex called out. "Enemy fleet is at 40% capacity and falling," an officer reported. "Their formations are broken, and their command structure appears to be in chaos. Also, the humans are requesting permission to try something they call space surfing with the debris." Rex looked at Jack, who just shrugged. "At this point," Jack said, "I think it's best not to ask too many questions. Just sit back and watch humanity rewrite the laws of space combat." Somewhere in the battle, a human voice sang out, "Another one bites the dust," as an enemy ship spun out of control, covered in what appeared to be space glitter. No. Commander Mike shook his head, watching the alien pilot attempt a simple barrel roll. "You're thinking too much. Feel the crazy." The training session was taking place in a simulator aboard the Galactic command ship. After seeing humanity's success, the Council had ordered all fleet pilots to learn human combat techniques. The results were interesting. But the gravitational forces would tear the ship apart, the alien pilot protested. "Only if you believe they will," Mike grinned. "Trust me, half of this is just confidence and style." In the observation room, Jack watched alongside Admiral Rex. Over the past month, he'd noticed changes in his own behavior. Yesterday, he'd actually used a jetpack without triple-checking the safety protocols first. "I still can't believe we're doing this," Rex muttered, his tentacles twitching as another alien pilot attempted a space drift maneuver. "Remember what you said when you first tried coffee," Jack reminded him. Rex's scales turned slightly pink. After discovering the human stimulant, he'd upgraded from 2 arms to 4 just to hold more cups. On the main screen, a mixed squadron of human and alien ships practiced formation flying, if you could call it formation. The aliens were slowly learning to embrace chaos. "Look at that!" Mike cheered as an alien pilot successfully completed a risky maneuver. "See, the laws of physics are more like guidelines anyway." "That's not how science works," the alien pilot responded, but she was smiling with all 3 mouths. Jack checked his tablet, reviewing the latest battle reports. The enemy was struggling to adapt to the new tactics. Their perfect predictive algorithms were useless against pilots who treated space combat like an extreme sport. "Watch this," called out Bob, one of the human instructors. He demonstrated a move that involved using an asteroid's gravity to slingshot backward while spinning, all while blasting Sweet Home Alabama on all frequencies. But why the music? An alien student asked. Style points, Bob replied. Half of winning is looking cool while doing it. To everyone's surprise, the alien pilots were starting to get it. Their movements became less rigid, more fluid. Some even started adding their own flair to the maneuvers. They said I was crazy back at the academy. One alien pilot laughed, pulling off a perfect corkscrew dive. Guess they were right. In the corner, Jack noticed a group of alien engineers studying human modifications to their ships. They were particularly fascinated by something humans called nitro boosters. Remember, Mike addressed the class. The enemy expects you to be logical. They expect you to follow proper space combat protocols. So what do we do? YEET the protocols. The class shouted back, aliens and humans together. Rex leaned toward Jack. I still don't know what yeet means. Neither do I, Jack admitted. But I've learned that's part of the beauty of human methods. You don't have to understand it. You just have to embrace it. As if to prove his point, an alien pilot zoomed past the window outside, their ship trailing sparklers while playing what humans called dubstep. We've created monsters, Rex sighed. No, Jack corrected, watching the chaos with pride. We've created warriors who aren't afraid to be crazy anymore. Are you absolutely sure about this? Head Counselor Marr asked, all three eye stalks focused on Commander Mike. The holographic display showed their final battle plan, and it was the most insane thing the Council had ever seen. Nope, Mike replied cheerfully, munching on a hot pepper. And that's exactly why it'll work. The combined human-alien fleet faced the enemy's last stronghold, a massive space station orbiting a dying star. The enemy had withdrawn their remaining forces there, thinking the unstable star would provide perfect protection. They expect us to be careful around that star, Mike explained. So naturally, we're going to blow it up. You want to create a supernova, on purpose? Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. He'd been around humans long enough now to expect the unexpected. Technically, we're going to ride the supernova, Bob corrected, showing a simulation. The enemy's predictive computers will literally explode trying to calculate this one. The plan was pure human insanity. Trigger the star's collapse, use the gravitational waves to boost their ships to impossible speeds, and hit the enemy station from all angles simultaneously while surfing the edge of a supernova. My ship's AI is already crying, an alien pilot commented, but she was grinning with excitement. Admiral Rex, now sporting 5 coffee cups, he'd grown an extra arm, checked the final preparations. The fleet was a bizarre mix of modified ships, some painted with flames, others covered in glitter, all armed with what humans called space sass. Fleet positions ready, Rex announced. Though I still think the conga line formation is unnecessary. Trust me, Mike winked, style is half the battle. The attack began with what humans called a flash mob approach. Half the fleet appeared to break down, drifting harmlessly. The other half started playing different Earth music on all channels, completely confusing enemy sensors. Now, Mike commanded, Operation Supernova Surfer is go. The broken ships suddenly sprang to life, launching specialized charges into the dying star. The enemy, following logical protocols, moved to intercept, exactly as planned. Cowabunga! Bob yelled, a phrase Jack still didn't understand, but had learned to associate with imminent crazy success. The star collapsed and then expanded spectacularly. The enemy's computers, trying to calculate safe vectors, crashed immediately. Their ships froze, stuck in standard protocols while the human-led fleet did the impossible. Riding the wave of the supernova, the combined fleet spiraled through space in patterns that defied physics. Ships spun and twisted, their crews protected by what one human engineer had called anti-splat devices, officially renamed for the alien commander's comfort. This is madness, the enemy commander transmitted. "No," Jack replied over the channel. "This is graduation day. We learned from the best." The enemy station, designed to counter logical attacks, had no defense against ships approaching at relativistic speeds while covered in glitter and playing Another One Bites the Dust. When the energy wave cleared, the enemy station was surrounded, its defenses scrambled by tactics no sane species would ever attempt. "We surrender," the enemy commander announced, sounding both terrified and confused. "We surrender to whatever this is." "This," Mike declared proudly, "is what happens when the galaxy learns to embrace the chaos." 1 year after the great victory, Jack stood before the Galactic Council to present his final report. The chamber looked different now. Someone, probably Bob, had added disco lights and what humans called a lava lamp to the ancient hall. "In conclusion," Jack said, trying not to smile as head counselor, Mars sipped from a cup labeled World's Craziest Counselor, "we need to officially update our species classification system." The holographic display showed his proposed changes. The traditional scale of civilizations, once based purely on technological advancement and logical development, now had a new axis: controlled chaos capability. "Humanity defies our old understanding," Jack continued. "They show us that progress isn't just about careful, logical steps. Sometimes you need to take a running jump while yelling, 'Watch this.'" Commander Mike, now the head of the new Galactic Defense Training Program, stood up. "Last week, we had a Zalaxian battle cruiser successfully perform a move we call the space handstand. Their entire species used to get motion sickness from regular space travel." The council chamber erupted in cheerful chaos, a phrase that would have been considered an oxymoron just a year ago. Admiral Rex, now sporting 6 arms, apparently coffee wasn't enough. He'd discovered energy drinks, pulled up the latest fleet statistics. "Combat effectiveness is up 300%, Rex reported, "though we're spending significantly more on glitter and paint for the ships." "Worth it," several voices called out. Jack switched the display to show the new Galactic Defense Academy. The training grounds looked more like an amusement park than a military facility. New recruits learned combat maneuvers through what humans called parkour in space, and ship designers were required to spend time on roller coasters for inspiration. "But most importantly," Jack said, "we've learned that what we once considered insanity was actually innovation waiting to happen. Humans taught us that the best defense isn't perfect prediction, it's perfect unpredictability." The council voted unanimously to create a new classification: controlled chaos species. Earth was listed as the prime example, with a special note: approach with enthusiasm and a strong stomach. As the session ended, Bob rushed in excitedly. "Hey, who wants to try the new training program? We've combined skydiving, zero-gravity dancing, and tactical operations." Several council members, who a year ago would have fainted at the idea, eagerly volunteered. Jack watched them leave, then checked his personal tablet. His latest thesis, "The Evolutionary Advantages of Being Batch * Crazy," had become the most downloaded paper in galactic history. Though most species still couldn't understand why humans considered "hold my beer" to be valid last words. "You know," Mike said, joining him at the window overlooking the spaceport, where ships now performed regular aerial ballet shows, "they still think we're crazy." "We are," Jack replied, adjusting his new jetpack. "We're just the right kind of crazy. Now, want to help me test this new zero-gravity obstacle course?" Mike grinned. "Did you add the flaming hoops like I suggested?" "Obviously," Jack said. "What's the point of defying death if you don't look cool doing it?" Somewhere in the background, another alien species discovered coffee for the first time. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how everyone liked it.